Pooja. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Brand Game Strong.
Thank you so much.
This is really exciting for me.
Is.
Yes. I feel like we became friends on Instagram.
We did.
And it's really weird that you're sitting here.
I know. But I feel like we've had a real journey since then.
We have had a journey.
It's been so nice.
I know. And I've been so excited to bring you on because I just feel like with us, we don't really need like a topic to talk about. It kind of just flows.
We could talk forever, literally.
Yeah. It's weird. I actually feel like it's quite hard to find people who are on such a similar wavelength sometimes where like you don't really need to know them that well, but you're just like, I'm vibing with this person.
Exactly. And you can talk about so many different things and ideas. And I think even with you, it feels like we could talk about anything and there's no like judgment or like you can bounce ideas off each other and it's always really nice.
Yeah. I think it also probably comes from both of us trying to maybe like make our mark in our like respective fields, and we're definitely going to talk about it, but
so true.
I feel like there's so many similarities when it comes to trying to start your own thing and having so many fears and like, you know, are people going to take me seriously? But like, I don't really want to put myself out there too much.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, we're going to start from the beginning, and I want to start by just asking you, tell me a little bit about you. Who is Pooja?
That feels like an interview question, doesn't it? Like when you're in a job.
You are being interviewed.
In a job. I am, I don't know. How would you define yourself? That's a weird one. So I guess like I'm 31 years old. I guess all the like things that are like actual characteristics. I live in East London.
Proper East London gal. You don't have the accent.
No, I'm Essex, and I don't even have an Essex accent.
You don't?
Yeah. I've worked really hard not to. I am a nurse. I work in functional medicine. I also have my own skincare business called Amala, which you know.
Yeah, I do.
So that's like me in a little nutshell.
What's your cultural background?
I am Hindu Punjabi. Yeah, so born and brought up in London, but my family is from India, from Punjab. Yeah.
Did you visit often?
We used to go often, as kids. That was always our summer holidays.
Where in Punjab?
We didn't go Punjab though, that's the thing. Okay. So I've only been to Punjab like twice. But otherwise we used to go to Delhi and Mumbai quite a lot because my mum's side of the family is all there. So we used to go there a lot. And then obviously as you get older, you don't go as much. But I need to go back. Yeah.
Do you miss it?
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting for you actually to go back now because I know with me, I've spoken about this in other episodes as well, but I've really changed my relationship with going back to India like massively. It's just happened like randomly over time, but having autonomy and freedom when you go to India as an adult and especially as a woman, it's really something.
Yeah.
Like when you're younger, I don't know if you had this as well where you were told to like cover up and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you can't wear shorts because men are going to be creepy. And that used to make me so angry because I was like, one, it's 1,000 degrees here. Two, like, how about they just don't look? Like, that's their problem. Why do I have to do things different? But that's society, isn't it now? But you're right, like as an adult. So I went like maybe 5-ish years ago. And it was so different, but it was still intense for me. I still sort of like, you know, like the markets and food markets and stuff. Whenever we're walking through them, my little cousin, he's a kid and he would have to hold my hand and take me around everywhere. And he was so protective because he was like, guys are looking at you. I have to protect you.
Wow.
And I was like, that's crazy that I still have to worry about that as a grown up. But yeah, but I think for me, if I go back, when I go back, it's going to be more like exploring and going to other places and really going and like seeing everywhere else in India because there's so much to see.
It's so true. I feel like I haven't even touched the surface of it either.
No.
I'd love to go properly, but I do think safety is still a massive concern. Like you need to be careful who you're with. Like you can't just be with one guy, but you can't be with only girls. You can't be with just one girl. You can't be by yourself. Like what do you do?
Exactly that.
So you said you were Hindu Punjabi. What was that like growing up in London? Was it East London?
Yeah. It's an interesting one because I feel like I've always been a bit of a coconut. I've always been I've not ever really connected with my roots. And And I think it was out of like, none of my friends were the same sort of background as me, or they were similar, but they weren't that, you know, culturally in touch either. And it was always this thing where I just felt like almost embarrassed, almost ashamed to be, you know, more in touch with my roots and my culture. So growing up, yeah, not really. I was a real little coconut. And then it's only around now, like I'm 31, and only now I'm really seeing like the value of it. I'm really wanting to reconnect with my roots and really trying. Even like when it comes down to like speaking the language, I can't speak Punjabi. Like I can do words, I understand it completely, but try and get me to put a sentence together and it's just awful. Hindi I can speak like fluently, which is a strange one. We speak both in our family, but Hindi I can speak and it's fine, but I'm still like shy. Like I wouldn't just start speaking to somebody in Hindi. I do it with like aunties and uncles and like grandparents and stuff, but otherwise not really.
Yeah, I'm quite similar actually, because technically my mother tongue is Sindhi and I don't really speak it. Like I speak random words or like phrases to like impress my dadi. But yeah, Hindi was the one that we grew up speaking at home as well. But I wanted to ask you, like, when you said you were coconut, what was it that made you feel ashamed about being Indian?
I think it was anything that seemed too Indian. I was like, oh, uncool. That's so uncool. You're such a freshie. Oil in your hair? No, such a freshie.
Yeah.
Like when my mum used to put oil in my hair, it would have to be specifically timed so that I could like wash my hair the night before I went to school, like triple wash it, make sure it's not greasy. Any kind of like Indian food. Like my dad had a restaurant. So like imagine like I could be taking that stuff to lunch for packed lunches every day. But I was like, absolutely not. Yeah, it was just like anything that felt a little bit too Indian. It was just too much for me. And I just thought, oh, I don't want to be seen as like this little freshie.
It was probably also because like we were made to feel like freshies, right? Like that was a bad thing as well.
I think like in like primary school, there wasn't a lot of Asian kids. So when you're not really around them, you just think it's like odd, or like the things that you do that the non-brown kids, that the white kids and stuff that they pick up on, or they maybe tease you for, and that like sets in, doesn't it? Because you're like, oh, okay, that's not cool. Don't want to do that. And it just kind of carries on, doesn't it? So a lot of now what I'm doing is like unlearning things where I thought that's not right or I shouldn't do that, whatever. Now I'm like, okay, actually, what do I want? What do I feel like I want, like culturally?
What are your thoughts on like this whole movement of, you know, how cool it is now to be Asian and be brown? What are your thoughts?
It's a trend, isn't it? And that's the thing. It will come and it will go.
Do you think it'll go?
It will go. It will be like, what's the next best thing? What's the next cool thing? Like right now, oh yeah, you can wear a bindi, or oh, all the oiling, and oh, Ayurveda, and like, I mean, let's not get into yoga and like the whitewashing of that, but you know, it's all a trend, and it's all a money making thing, really, isn't it? Because it's like, oh, okay, cool. If I can be this thing that's trending, and I can be that on social media, and I can get likes and views and ads, and it brings you money, you're going to do it, right? You jump on the trend. And I don't think that there's many people that are genuinely like, oh, I really respect your traditions, your culture. I really respect, you know, where you're coming from, and therefore I'd like to incorporate it into my life. There's not a lot of that.
Not a lot. I think it does exist, and it is kind of increasing. There are people trying to learn, but I do agree with you. I think when it comes to corporations and you know money making machines, they're like, okay, where's the next tick box?
Exactly, and that's why it will come and it will go. But the people that do genuinely want to learn, I think there is space for them. I think there's. You know, we can't ever close ourselves off into this box where it's like, oh, this is ours. And I especially wouldn't feel comfortable doing that because I've shunned it for so long, right?
Obviously,
I'm like, okay, no. I'm like, let's all learn together.
Yeah, like who are we to gatekeep, right? When we've like shut ourselves out.
Exactly.
It was interesting. I was at a festival last week. I think I told you about it, Afro Nation. And I saw a girl there, a woman, and she had a nose ring on, but you know, one of those ones that has the chain?
Yeah.
Like the ones that
like
Indian
a proper
bride,
nut. Yeah.
a nut. She had a nut on. And I was just staring and I was like, that made me so uncomfortable because it was, I don't know, I was just a bit like.
What was her background?
She was white.
Okay.
Yeah, she was white. She had braids in her hair and she was wearing a nut. And I was like, I mean, I'm not one to judge, but it was just very new to me because I'd never been to a festival before. It was my first time. So I think I was just
What a festival to go to, by the way. Afro Nation is your first one.
Honestly, I recommend it to everyone. Definitely try and go next year if you like Afro. But yeah, it's stuff like that kind of makes you question, okay, but is that right? Like, does she know where this comes from? Is she appreciative of it? Because I'm not going to strike up a conversation. She was like quite far away, but I made a very quick judgment and then I kind of stood back and I was like, yeah, but who am I to really judge also?
That's interesting that you felt a way and then you actually caught yourself being like, well, how can I judge? I don't actually know.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's also part of, like, everything is so nuanced, right? Where we don't know, like, we could do things that we don't realize have some sort of cultural significance to somebody else. You know, we just don't know. And like, there is a bit of like, ignorance is bliss, but then there's also like, well, that's a huge thing on your face that you've chosen to wear that you know has come from a certain place. And obviously we don't know why or how or what her background is or whether she actually understands it. And she might, right? She might.
Yeah.
But it's little choices that people make and you can't judge what you can't judge. And I think now I feel a lot more of that where I'm like, let people do what they want to do. Like, people are going to do it regardless.
That's true.
You know? And there's when things are clearly wrong, it's fine to say it and put people in their place in that way. But there's also an element of like, just let people live. Like, what are you going to do? You can't fight everybody.
That's so true. I actually felt that a lot because I was tempted to get braids and then I was like, but am I appropriating? And then I didn't because I was like, it's my first time. I'll just observe. And I really did observe. It was awesome. But I was very like mindful because I was like, I'm in a space here where like I need to be respectful of like all the different types of cultures that are around here and just make sure I'm not like offending anyone and stuff. But honestly, it was so chill. I don't think anybody cared.
That's what I was going to say. You know what's so interesting is that for the most part, it's not the culture itself that cares. It will be everybody else. So like, you'll see things on like social media where there'll be a picture of, so-and-so got braids or whatever. And everyone in the comments that is kicking off are like white people, you know? And you're like, okay, but then like the black people in there are like, well, we don't care. So it's an interesting one because, you know, people are always going to have something to say.
Yeah.
And that's half the problem too.
It's true. And I think even the ones that do care, I do feel like there's a respectful way to like educate somebody. And a lot of people are very like gentle with the way that they educate. But I also find there's a lot more like aggro online than there is in person. Like
100%.
At the festival, nobody cares.
Yeah.
People are just chilling. And like you go on comments on social media and you're just like, what is people's problem? Like, who hurt everybody?
Yeah.
That's really
I remember when I went to Jamaica and the girls that I went with, they got braids. I was like, it's not for me. Like, my head shape just it's not for braids, right? And I was like, they got braids. And actually the women who came and did it, firstly, they'd spent 12 hours braiding their hair.
Wow.
So literally the entire like last day and night, through the night, they were braiding hair. And it looked incredible. But they loved it. And everyone out there, they were like, it looks amazing. So,
there you go.
You know.
I feel like you could have rocked the braids.
Oh, I don't know. Got to go back to Jamaica.
I want to go. So back to you. So you said that you're a nurse. So what drove you into nursing as a career? Is that what you studied?
Yeah. So whenever somebody asks me this, I always say I fell into it. And I really believe in like everything is for a reason and you know, things happen to lead you to a certain place in your life. So I never like sit and think like, if I didn't do that, I probably would have been elsewhere or whatever. Like, no, it was meant to happen. But I didn't want to do nursing. I wanted to be a dentist back when I was in school. I took all the subjects that I needed for it. Could not do maths to save my life. Like A-level maths, horrific. Like nobody warns you how hard it is.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I was like, okay, I can't do this. So I dropped it. So I was like, okay, well, I can't do nursing. I can't do dentistry. So then I decided to... so our school didn't make it very obvious of like how much of a big decision it is to choose your career, like what you want to do at uni almost. So anyway, so I left it until the last day of our applications. I had no idea by this point of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to apply. And I remember this one girl that I knew, she was like, well, I'm going to do midwifery. I want to be a midwife. And I was like, I like babies. I'll do that. So I applied for midwifery. Got the interviews, got the places, and then messed up my A-levels. So I didn't actually get in. So then in the gap year that I took, I was like, well, how else can I do midwifery? I was like, okay, well, I can do nursing. And then there's a course that you can do I think it's like an 18-month like transfer course. So I was like, I'll do the 18-month transfer course and do that. So applying for nursing in that gap year was probably, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, maybe it was a regret where I wish I used that year to really discover myself instead of just going down this one path, even though I still wasn't sure about it. So I applied and I got in and whatever. And then I got to my third year and I had a complete breakdown. Where I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a nurse. I can't do this. It's too hard. Like it is rough. You don't have a normal uni experience. Everyone's out partying. You can't because you're on placement. You're doing night shifts. You're waking up at the crack of dawn to go to work. You don't have normal uni life. And everybody on my course was like older and there was nobody my age. And it was a really strange place. And the placements themselves, horrific. As a student nurse, you are literally just cleaning poop and like doing all the like horrible things. So I got to third year and I was like, I don't want to do this. And I thought, you know what, let me see what I like doing. And at that point, I was really into makeup and skincare still. But the makeup side of things, this is like before it was like such a big thing, right? Of like, oh, a makeup artist. And it was like all like self-taught from like YouTube and all like the OG YouTubers that do makeup, right? And I was like, I could really do this. But I'm also the kind of person who's like, if you've started something, finish it. So I was like, let me finish doing nursing and then I'll figure it out. Finished it and then got to a place of being like, okay, what's the easiest way here now? And it was to go into, I was in the NHS for 1 year. And again, not for me. Then I went into private and I've been in private healthcare ever since.
Wow, it's quite a journey. If you could have gone back to that gap year and done something different, what would it have been?
Followed my passion. I probably would have actually. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I did like work more on myself in that year. But I was, you're young and you think, oh, what's the next step? Or and in terms of my family, like I was the first one in my household to go to uni. Yeah. So there was nobody to like guide me, like, oh, this is how you should do it, whatever. My parents, like obviously immigrant parents and stuff, like they didn't study here, so they don't know the system. So I didn't have any of that. So yeah, I wish I kind of like made a bit more of a brave effort to do something that I really wanted to do rather than just what I thought maybe was right.
It's tough because, when you said that, oh, like I'll do midwifery because I love kids or like love babies, like I was literally like, I love computers. I'm going to do computer engineering.
And then you find out none of it is actually that. While I was nursing, I was on a placement where we were with midwives and I saw somebody give birth. And as soon as that happened, I was like, I am not doing the transfer course.
I'm out.
Immediately no.
But then do you feel like if everybody at that age knew the harsh realities of what they were thinking of going into, they just wouldn't do any of those things and nobody would apply to those courses?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look at it now. They're desperate for nurses. Nobody wants to do it.
So is like, is that within the NHS currently that there's a shortage, or is it all over, do you think?
NHS, because what's happening is a lot of NHS nurses are coming out into private.
Right, because the money's better. What about quality of life?
Depends where you are. I've been in some really crappy places. I've been in places where they'll pay you really well, but they will treat you like absolute crap.
What have been some of the, I guess, worst experiences you've had?
Oh, I could write a book.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. One clinic I was working at, my boss, the doctor, the director of the company, he punched me. I'm surprised I haven't told you this story. Yeah, I was physically assaulted by him.
Why? How?
Because he was angry that I spoke when I shouldn't have during surgery, even though what I was doing was safety checks. Regardless of what I was doing, right? It should never have happened. Yeah, but he had rage. He was a certain kind of narcissistic personality, and so that was a big thing.
So he reached out and physically punched you?
Oh yeah,
square in the face.
Like not in my face. No, not in my face. In my arm.
In your arm, but still.
Imagine in my face.
Oh, so you get punched in the face?
No, in my arm. In my arm, but like fully like swung his arm and punched me. Yeah, yeah.
Did you leave the next day?
No.
Why are we like this?
Why are we like this? Well, this is the thing. So for me, where I was at with my career at that point, I had just started specializing in, so this was in ophthalmology, in eyes, and that part was in laser eye surgery. And I just started specializing in retina, so the back of the eye. And the opportunity I had there was to work with a doctor who is like amazing in his field. And, you know, he was working as part of the same clinic and they were friends. And it was like, if I left or if I turned that into something, I would basically lose the opportunity that I had. And for me, I was like, why should I ruin my own career path for something that he has done? But the way that I handled it was that, everyone says like, why didn't you take a payout and whatever? It was never about the money for me. It was about telling like him knowing what he's done wrong. So I sat down with him and basically, he cried because he was like, I can't believe I've just done that.
Was it just you and him?
And a manager, because I've got to think these things through. But I don't think he was ever actually sorry for it.
No.
And for me, it affected my whole work because then my whole team, my nursing team, nobody supported me because they knew what he was like. And they were like, oh, you know what he's like. Don't worry, this happens to everybody. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. And that's the crazy part about private healthcare that people don't see. There's a lot of things that kind of get covered up and it's easy to do so because you don't have the same guidelines in place. You can kind of do whatever you want, which you shouldn't be, but yeah. And then I basically just said, look, I never want to work with him again. I said, I'd never want to be in a room alone with him again. I don't want to do any of his work, his surgeries with him, nothing. And that was fine. Like management were fine with me doing that for a period of time. And then they realized actually it wasn't helpful to them. So then it was a little bit of bullying of like, well, why aren't you doing his shifts? And all the other nurses being like, well, we have to do it, so you should too. Well, actually, you guys could have all stood up for me. And then we could have all been in the same boat.
Yeah.
Is what it is. And then anyway, I ended up then just working with the other doctor. And then he started a whole new clinic and then I went with him there.
Okay.
So yeah, it was fine in the end, but stuff like that really does happen. Yeah,
like it's never actually fine because like what, has he had to like
nothing.
Pay for that?
No, nothing.
No.
Nothing. And then, when people say, well, you should have reported him because what if he does it to somebody else? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But then everybody else in that clinic, nobody took my side. So when you're not getting support, that's not my problem anymore.
You're just looking out for yourself at that point, aren't you?
So for me, I was like, I have to look out for my career.
Yeah.
And what this means for me moving forward, as opposed to me retaliating to be like, well, you were wrong. I know he's wrong. He's done it before. Like I wasn't the first person he did that to. So for me, it was about looking out for me.
Yeah.
And it was fine. And again, like I said, everything happens the way it happens for a reason. If I had gone down a different path with that, I wouldn't be where I am now.
So you've worked in some really prestigious practices, I feel, in a really basically prestigious area of London. And I wanted to ask you, do you have any really interesting clients you've had? Maybe don't give away too much.
I was going to say, I can't even say names.
No names. No, just stories. Maybe do you have anything interesting that's happened?
Yeah, Harley Street's a funny one. So it's funny because even on your lunch break, you walk down and you'll see people, right? Like celebrities or whatever.
Have you seen anyone super famous?
Oh, David Attenborough.
Wow. Okay.
I know. It was crazy. I was walking back from lunch and I saw this little old man walking in front of me with a carer. Why is it that from the back of his head I recognized him? I was like, that's David Attenborough. That is David Attenborough. And I was like, I had to walk past and I was walking past like this. And I was like, oh, it's him. He's very cute in person. He's very small and just very cute. He's probably the only one that I've ever fangirled over. There's been loads. There's been so many people where I'm like, yeah.
You're probably desensitized to that, aren't you?
And also, I'm just also people are people. It doesn't make a difference to me who they are. I even where I'm at now, where I work in functional health, you'll get people that are famous, famous, and then you'll get people who are just very wealthy, and are famous probably in some circles. And then you'll get people who can't actually afford to have the treatments that they're having and they've sold their car to come in. And
wow.
Yeah, so you get all ends of the spectrum. And for me, I'd never treat anybody differently. So whether you're a billionaire and you come in and you're always you literally get off your private jet and you come in, or, you want things a certain way, whatever, you're still getting treated the exact same way as somebody that is telling me that they're on their last £5. It doesn't make a difference to me.
No, and it's important, right? Because I think also you can't treat people differently. You have to be professional in your job, right? So.
And just even when you're talking to them, for me, it's fascinating what you can hear from people who have disgusting amounts of money and the things that they go through and the things that they tell me about. And people will sit and just open their heart to me and tell me everything about their life. But people that have money and people that don't have as much money, we all have the same problems. That's what I've realized. We all have all the same problems. Money actually makes it worse.
Yeah, probably.
Because it adds this layer of oh, well, if you're having marriage problems, okay, well, if that now ends, so does the amount of money that you're making. So things like that, yeah, that's why, conversations will always feel the same as well to me.
Moving on to your freelance work, I wanted to touch on photography because you actually freelanced in photography, didn't you, for a while? When did you start that? What got you into that? And I guess what made you stop?
So, photography, it's still so close to my heart. And I still love it. When I first started, it just started as, when you just take pictures on your phone and people would always be like, oh, you've got such an eye for it.
You do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But I always thought oh, whatever, right? When you just don't believe in yourself. And I'd be like, oh, whatever. And then I bought my first camera. And
what camera did you get?
I can't even remember what it was. It was a little Canon.
Yeah.
What was it? It was a little DSLR, but it was a little Canon. And I remember I got it because my partner at the time, my ex, he bought one. And I was like, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it kind of thing. So I bought one too. And then I didn't use mine for ages and it just kind of sat there. And then I started using it when I went on holidays. So the first kind of things that I loved shooting were landscapes and animals or just stuff you see on holiday, right? And that was fun and that was really cool for me. And then again, I didn't use it again for a while or whatever. And then one of my friends, Reese, he also got into photography. So he bought a camera and we were like, let's just go into London and just see if we want to take pictures of things. So then it turned into taking pictures of architecture and I loved architecture photography. It was just so aesthetically pleasing for me. I just loved it. So we would do that and find really cool places and just everything that just just looked really good. And then it went from doing that, and then randomly, I remember one day we were out doing stuff like that, and I said to him, I was like, oh, the light's really nice over there, go and stand over there. And he was like, what do you mean go stand over there? And then he went and stood there, and I took pictures, and he was like, these are really good, what the hell? And that just kind of then snowballed, because then it would be, and he'd do the same, so we'd just take pictures of each other, and then it would be like just street photography, so taking pictures of like people, right? Just people in the street. And then just friends and family, friends who wanted like photo shoots for stuff. It would be like little things. And then I started to get more creative with this, and it would be like more sort of like, what's my vision? What do I want to do? And then I did like beauty photography a bit. I kind of did weddings a little bit, hated it.
Oh God,
because
it sounds awful.
What an industry that I'd never ever want to be in.
I respect people though in that industry.
It's rough. Yeah, it's hard work. It's like a real grind, because I was like, I can't do the waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and take pictures of somebody. And also just the whole like day of weddings, and just the pressure. The pressure of a wedding. It's the one day you get one shot. Like somebody's like, okay, you're doing the rings. You're not going to be like, oh, can you just take it off and do it again, please? You know what I mean? It's that pressure. Like I can't. Yeah, for me, it was just a lot. And I didn't enjoy that, because for me, I was like, this really feels like work now. And that's never what I wanted photography to feel like. But saying that, while I was working my full-time job, I thought what I wanted to do was photography. So I was like, I'm freelancing, but at some point I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to be a photographer. But I didn't back myself enough. I didn't have the faith in myself. You know when people tell you you're good, but you don't see it?
Is that because you're afraid that you will start to believe you're good and that will make you a prick? Or are you genuinely just refuse to believe that your work is good? Because if your photos are objectively good, how can you look at them and be like, that's shit?
I don't know. I think it was always, maybe I could do better. I don't think I ever thought like, yeah, I'll start realizing I'm good. Because that's all I wanted. I wanted to feel that. All I wanted was to be like, yeah, I'm good. And I just didn't get there with photography. And I think because the things that I was suddenly good at were feeling like work for me. Right. They were feeling like, okay, this is a job. Like I have to do it this way. And then when you're going off of other people's briefs as well, for me, I'm like, this doesn't give me creative like flexibility. Yeah. And then I was like, now this feels like a job. And I was like, ugh. So then I kind of like slowed it down. I kind of did some shoots here and there for friends, you know, who have brands and stuff and who wanted to do stuff. And then I just stopped. Like my camera's at home, just sitting there getting dusty. Do you do the one-off shoot if people ask you nowadays? I get asked and I just don't. I don't. One, because I feel like I'm just rusty with it and I feel like it would take some practice. I just don't have time either. I don't. I feel like I have a lot on my plate and I just don't have the time for that. Yeah. You are doing a lot, to be honest, and with full-time work, and we'll get into Amala as well. I feel like, I don't know, there's only so much you can really do, and you want to have a life too. Like you want to see your friends and stuff. Exactly. Well, right? Yeah. I feel that because I, like you, have like multiple passions too. And I feel like at one point in time, I cannot be doing more than like one or max two things, including my full-time job. Like I have to constantly context switch depending on the week or the day. And it can be quite hard actually when you pick up like different bits of work. Yeah. You just burn out quite easily, right? You do, but why do we take on so much? Because when people say that they want to find this one passion, it's interesting. So I went to this talk last night, Stephen Bartlett and Simon Sinek, and somebody in the crowd asked, their question was like, how do you find your passion? And I remember Stephen said, he was like, why is there one passion? Why is it that you're looking for one passion? And that's so true. And I think it's actually a blessing to have more than one passion. Yeah. Because if you have one, the pressure to make that passion your thing and to make it work and be your livelihood, that can be so consuming. And when you've got different things, it breaks it up, especially if they're different things in completely different categories. Yeah. And I think it makes you a bit more sort of wholesome. It makes you a bit more like you can do different things and you can sit in different rooms and you can speak to different people. And not that that's the goal, but it does make you feel better about yourself because you're not then just chasing this one like rabbit hole of like this pursuit where you don't know where that's going to end up. You can keep working hard at it, but that can be gone tomorrow. And then what? Whereas if you have like a little mixed bag, okay, well, I enjoy doing this, but I'm also good at this. And it's also the whole thing of you can be really good at something, but you might not love it. Like in past jobs, like I've been good at them and people have been like, oh, this, like you're good at this, you know, and it's not been for me. Or when people approach you and they're like, oh, you know, you'd be good at this. Like, why don't you come and work with me on this? And I'm like, doesn't sit right with me. It's not my passion.
Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it day in and day out, right?
Or even at all, you know?
At all. Yeah, it's true. And actually, like, I've realized that as well with having multiple things. I feel like it kind of, in some ways, gives me more anxiety because there's just so much to do. But in other ways, it gives me less because I'm no longer, like, attaching my identity to one single thing that, God forbid, that fails, I am a failure, like, which is what would happen to me anyway, the way that my brain works. If I only did one thing and I had a day where it didn't go well, I'd be like, oh my God, like I'm literally doing everything wrong. In those moments, I then, you know, I pick up my iPad and I start drawing or I do something else. And I just feel like, okay, like, even if this was a complete shit show of a day, I did something that made me feel happy or, you know, something that was a bit different.
And that stuff, like I can really see you love that. So the people don't know, right? That you did my branding.
I did.
So that's the thing, like I reached out to you because I could see how, I mean, we were already talking, we were already connecting and we didn't connect in a sense of like we're doing business together or anything, right? But when I saw how passionate you were about doing that stuff and illustrating and branding and the creative stuff, I was like, yeah, I want you to do my stuff. So when I remember when I was like, okay, here's what I want for Amala. This is my vision. And I mean, the calls that we had about like, what do we want? And the mood boarding and the endless mood boarding.
So much mood boarding.
But yeah, when we did that, it was so nice to like work together firstly to, like I said, bounce ideas off each other, but then to see your stuff come to life. When you'd be like, I'm sending you over like, you know, this illustration or whatever, I was like, I love it. It was just amazing. It was so nice. And like, just to see your creativity like really flow, you can see that you're so passionate about it.
Thank you. I felt
really
like you were so good to work with because you just kind of like literally just handed it to me and you were like, I trust you to just do your thing and understand what I'm trying to do with my brand.
Yeah, which is crazy because I'm not like that.
Really?
No.
Oh.
I'm very much like, I need things to be a certain way.
You were very chill. Like,
because I trusted you.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, like it was from the first conversation when I said to you, this is what I see. This is kind of the mood that I want it to be. These are kind of the colors we want. And you came back with the same stuff. Like you came back with exactly what I had sort of envisioned. So I was like, yeah, okay, you get it.
Well, we could go into Amala now because that's a perfect segue.
Yeah.
I love your brand. I feel like, I mean, obviously, part of building the brand. No, but I love what you're trying to do with it. Yeah. And like, I mean, we've been speaking for so long and we've not really spoken about skincare yet, which is wild. True. But I just wanted to start off with like, how did you actually get into skincare? Because you said you were quite young when you were into it, like in uni.
Yeah. So even before that, I was really into skincare. And I know a lot of people that kind of have skincare companies or, you know, clinics or whatever you want to call them. They have a journey of like, oh, I had really bad acne or I had this or I had that. I didn't. I had great skin. I'm not going to lie. I had great skin.
Good genetics.
Yeah, it was though. But it really was. And the thing is, for me, it was more like a nerdy thing where I was like, ooh, the science behind it. And like this ingredient does this and this ingredient does that. And I remember like nobody else my age was like, I think it was like, yeah, it was in like secondary school, maybe like A-level times. And yeah, it was more so in uni though, actually. But it was like nobody cared. Like people were like using the same soap to wash their ass and then their face. Like they didn't care. And for me, I was like, oh no, like this, you know, this is how these things work, and this is what you can achieve with this skincare. And then slowly, it would be like the people around me would be like, oh, okay, so what do I do if my skin's doing this? What do I do if I have a spot? What if I do if my skin's oily? What should I be using? So that was always my thing. I was always the person where you'd ask me and I'd have the answers and I'd be like, try this and try this. And I never did anything with it. I never thought to do anything with it. I just thought, well, this is fun. I just enjoy this. Like I just nerd out on skincare. And never once did it ever click in my brain that you could do something with this. Like you enjoy this and you know so much and you've taught yourself so much. Like you could really do something, and I never did. And it was right when in the job that I was working with the retinal specialist doctor, when he started his own thing, I was in that place for about a year, completely burnt out, completely. I was doing so many people's roles at once.
Oh God.
Because it was a brand new clinic and I was the only nurse. And being so burnt out, I just quit on a whim. I went back after Christmas and I was like, I'm out, which is again something I never would have done. The anxiety in me was screaming like, you don't do it. You need a plan. You need something. And I didn't have a job lined up. And I just quit on a whim because I was like, you know what? I'm at the place now where I'm like, anything is better than this. And also this, like, it was weird. Like something changed for me. It was like this deep knowing of like, it'll be fine. Whatever happens, it'll be fine. Because I think by that point I'd experienced so much, done so much, that I was like, I can go and work anywhere and I'll be okay. I can half-ass anything and be okay. But actually what happened is when I quit, something clicked in me where it was like, you need to go and do aesthetics. You need to go and do skin. And that's what I thought I was going to do. So I quit and then I trained up in aesthetics. And as soon as I trained, I was like, I don't want to do injectables. I don't want to do Botox and fillers. It didn't resonate with me. I have nothing against it. I have stuff in my face. But doing it to other people does not resonate with me. And it still doesn't. I kind of waited. I was like, maybe I'll enjoy it at some point. And it still doesn't. For me, it's a holistic thing where it's about how your skin makes you feel. Of course, doing things like fillers and stuff makes you also feel good. But for me, it's deeper than that. For me, it's about like, how does it connect with your mental health? How does it connect with stress? I mean, stress is like the biggest factor that causes, you know, aging and your skin looking awful, and it shows on your skin so easily. When people come in, like that's the first thing I can see. And you can see it from things like body language, you know, what they talk about. And a lot of people really want to offload and they want to de-stress, and I love that part. I'm like, if I can do that for somebody and create this space where you feel like you can come in and just zen, like just chill out, like I want to be able to do that for people. And sure, you get great skin at the end of it too. But, and then there's also the science to that, where I'm like, okay, this stuff's easy. That part's easy for me. Where I'm like, we can do treatments, we can do chemical peels, we can do microneedling, we can do all of that stuff. But for me, it's more about like the holistic of like inside, what else is there?
Because it's always from within first, right?
Always from within.
Everything else is a treatment. It's a band-aid.
Exactly. It's a band-aid. Exactly. So if you can go and get facials and all you're doing is just that, and you're not looking inside at like what's causing your breakouts, what's causing wrinkles, what's causing, you know, oily skin, what's causing changes in your skin, what's causing inflammation. And that's the biggest thing. Inflammation caused by stress is just such a huge problem that people don't realize, and you can see it so easily on skin.
It's true. It's wild because speaking of me being on holiday last week, oh my gosh, when I tell you, like the minute I landed in Portugal, within, I don't know, like 2 hours, I looked in the mirror and like suddenly my skin was glowy. And I don't know if it was the mirror I was looking at, but I was like, I have no dark circles. I woke up the next day, my skin was just like dewy naturally. And I'd just not seen it like that before. And then I landed back in London and the dark circles came back and like the weird little bumps came back. And I was like, great, I'm back in London.
It's life though, isn't it?
It's wild.
Everybody says that when they're on holiday, their skin is amazing, their hair is amazing because your body is releasing chemicals where you're happy and you're relaxed.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference. And I mean, I wish we could be on holiday all the time to feel like that, but we can't. So we have to do the work to feel better.
But is it also not about trying to find peace within the daily stresses, right? Because it's so easy to have that contrast between busy life and holiday and suddenly feel amazing on holiday. But if your entire life was a holiday, I'm sure you'd find something else to stress about. So I don't know. It's something like similar to you. I'm genetically quite blessed with just not having
great skin.
Thank you. The stresses of life are not helping it. But I think, it's only really like what I've almost done to myself that is where I've started seeing like little bumps and little, like maybe I wouldn't say blemishes, but just textures happening.
Textures, yeah.
Which is natural as well,
right?
Of
course, yeah.
But yeah, it's all from within.
Yeah, I think that's such a major part of it too, is that normalizing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't have to have perfect skin. It's about accepting what you have and being happy with it. And sure, yeah, there's things you can do to maybe enhance it or optimize your skin where you're not feeling miserable looking at it, It's about how you feel about it, and texture is normal, pores are normal, oil is normal, like it's all completely normal. I mean, social media has destroyed that for us.
Oh my gosh, yeah, with the Paris filter especially.
Oh my God, the Paris filter. But we're all guilty of doing it. I do it. Take a picture, slide one. Add.
But what about people who have like particularly, let's say specific skin conditions, so like cystic acne and stuff like that? Like I think it's quite easy for us to also like with great skin be like, oh yeah, like
exactly,
love yourself. But what about people who actually have skin conditions at this age? Like how are they meant to feel? What are they meant to do to help themselves?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, with skin conditions, it goes hand in hand with depression and anxiety. And there's so much of it. And I don't think that that's looked at enough. And you could go to like your GP and be like, I've got acne, and they'll give you some antibiotics. And then you take antibiotics and then it disrupts your gut flora, which then disrupts your mental health. Like it's all one big vicious circle. And not to mention the aspect of it of looking in the mirror every day and not liking the fact that you have cystic acne or having people look at you. These are huge things that I don't think that people talk about enough or that they care about enough. And it must be so hard to just walk around day to day. And honestly, for men, women, we put makeup on, right? Yeah. We can cover it to an extent. Men can't do that. So then what happens?
Yeah. They just live with it.
They just live with it. And then they have this like view of themselves where they feel like they're not good enough. And I think it's one thing to just say, oh, we should normalize, acne, or we should normalize things like that. But it's just not that easy to walk around day to day. Yeah, sure, we can try and do that on Instagram and social media and make posts and like normalize it and post pictures of people with acne. But day to day, it's a really hard struggle for them.
Not in the circles that we're in, for sure, because like it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just comparing yourself and being out there and knowing that there is judgment there. People are also probably going to be like, oh, maybe you should just drink more water. Just like, oh.
Exactly that. And people are very quick to offer their opinions, right? Very quick to be like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried, changing your pillowcases more often? And you're just like, it doesn't work that way. And everyone is different. I think for me, that's the biggest thing that I've seen with Amala. Like everybody that comes in, your skin is completely different. Every single person's skin is different. Every condition you have is different. And the reasons for it are always different. So you could come in at one point and I can try and help you with your acne. I don't deal with like things that are real conditions like cystic acne. I would say go to a dermatologist.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and do things that are like above what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to try and give somebody this like false hope of I'm going to fix that for you. go to somebody that really knows what they're doing and they're going to actually be able to deal with it. And again, it's a band-aid. I could sit and do extractions on you all day and do a nice facial for you and calm the skin down, and we could do some LED and, you know, and then you go home and you're like, great, my skin looks amazing. A week later, it's back because there's a root cause, right? So it's also about doing that. And I don't think it's easy, because a lot of people with skin conditions will look for solutions everywhere.
Yeah.
And they'll try everything. And it's really difficult. It really is.
Speaking of products, what are some of the brands that you absolutely trust?
Ooh. There's a lot. I'm not somebody who, so even at Amala, I don't use just one brand.
Okay.
I'll use different things. And when you talk about medical grade skincare, I mean, that's nonsense. It's just a term that's just been coined for branding. And a lot of people don't realize that. So when you look at those medical grade brands, they're actually very harsh. I don't use any of them. Not to say that I wouldn't ever, and not to say that people shouldn't. Use what works for you. So for me, what do I use? And it changes. My stuff changes all the time. At the moment, I'm really into like Kate Somerville. She does like her range of, what's it called? It's like a purpley kind of range, and it's really calming for the skin, and it's repairing your skin barrier.
Right.
That at the moment for me is amazing, because my skin, it goes up and down during the month. It's, you know, all over the place, and it can get very inflamed, get very irritated. And then I'll use acids, and then I'll make it worse. And I mean, we don't have all the answers, you know? So for me, it's all about calming the skin down, and it's less so about brands for me. It's more so about ingredients.
Okay.
So I can use brands that are super expensive and claim to do all these amazing things. And I can also use brands that are really, really affordable, because the ingredients and the way that it's formulated is really, really good. So that's what I prefer. I love like Bioma. Bioma's incredible, really affordable brand. Their cleanser, that jelly cleanser, so good, really good for oilier skin. I love their, they do a hydrating serum. Obsessed right now. And that will change. Give it a couple of months, it will change. I'll be obsessed with something else. And I think there's also a danger in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because you end up, because other people do it too. People on social media will always, on Instagram, they're like, oh, I'm going to buy this because you said it. And I'm always like, oh, I don't want you to do that. So I've actually stepped away from doing like product reviews all the time.
Yeah.
I'll talk about something if I really like it, or if I can say to you, this will be great for this and this type of skin, or this will be great for this and this condition. I don't want like this like overall like, oh, I got sent this product, so I'm going to say, oh, this is amazing. I don't really accept PR. I don't really do it for that reason, because I don't like that it can so easily just be product hoarding. I don't want people to waste their money.
And it's disingenuous, right? Because you're kind of like, I guess you just don't know who to trust anymore online. You don't know who's being paid to.
Exactly. Because it's so easy just to be sent something, be paid for it, and just post it. So yeah, I just don't. I think for me, I'm still trying to find my way with that, where I don't want it to be this overbearing thing of try this product, try this product, try this product. But also being like, well, actually, this works really well. Maybe try this. Or, you know, there's a fine line between it, and I'm trying to find that still.
Speaking of, you know, putting stuff out there on social media, what's your relationship like with like your platform online?
Oh, at the moment, I really hate social media. I go through waves, so I have a very love-hate relationship with it. You're the same, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I find it exhausting. Honestly speaking, trying to like keep up. Like if I was actually trying to do the whole like chase the algorithm and become successful and get all the views and all the clicks and whatever, if I was trying to do that, like what's the point? Like I'd need to do that as a full-time job. Do you know what I mean?
It's true. It's
just exhausting. And I got to a place where when I first started doing skincare content back in lockdown, I was doing YouTube and I was doing all the reels and all the videos on Instagram. I've taken all of that down now actually, but that was fun because I didn't care. I didn't care about, you know, how many views I got. Like recently my mum came across my YouTube. She was like, oh, I forgot you did all those videos on YouTube. She's like, you know, you've got views on some of them. So it's very interesting because I was like, I hadn't even looked. I didn't check because I didn't care. It was fun. And at the time we were all in this space where everyone wanted to help each other.
Yeah.
And it was this real community. It was so nice. And there's so many creators that I connected with on Instagram during that time who have now disappeared.
Yeah.
Because then lockdown finished and actually they had to get back to real life. But the content they made during that time was amazing and you could see they really loved it. So for me, I'm always going to stick to doing the things that bring me joy. And right now, Instagram is not a place that brings me joy. So I don't really make content that much. I don't put my private life on there really. So it's just kind of a place where I'll just use it here and there, wherever I want, kind of whatever I want to post.
Do you feel like you need to be doing more to like put Amala out there?
That's the pressure I feel. I really do, because I don't make enough content for that. I'll do the facials, and even like creating content like during facials. Obviously, like it's up to people if they want to be filmed, right? And that's always, I always get consent, but it's also like it takes away from it for me. It takes away from the whole experience for me. I want somebody to switch off and relax and not worry about I'm being filmed.
Yeah, it's very true.
You know? And also for me, I'm like, I'm in the zone. Like I'm there with like all my music and like meditation going. Like it's also nice for me.
Yeah.
And then to be like, hold on a minute.
Filming in the
Click.
background.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. But saying that, the world we live in, to make a business grow, you have to.
You have to. I think you have to strike a balance. Right?
Yeah.
And it'll always sort of skew one way or the other. Like just finding your sort of happy medium is probably the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do agree. I think like the world we are in, it just helps. Like I think you can still do well without it, but I do think it massively helps.
Yeah.
But it really depends on what your brand is and what your ethos is and what kind of clients you're trying to bring on, because some of your clients might not even be on social. How do you reach them?
Yeah.
Word of mouth?
Yeah, some people have. They've come through and they're like, I'm not actually on social media, but somebody told me about you.
I love that. That's the best kind of advertising, I find.
Yeah. But it's interesting. So I'm at a place now where I'm actually at a point where I'm kind of changing things with Amala. So like I said, I've always felt like there's more to it than just skin. It's deeper than that for me.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm moving towards like things like energy healing, sound healing, and how I can incorporate all of that into it. And obviously with things like that, like, you know, it takes a certain amount of studying and practice and all of that. But for me, that it taps into my spiritual side.
Love that.
So
it's all connected as well.
Yeah. And it's all so connected, so connected. So yeah, that's where I'm kind of at with it. And I think, like you said, it's disingenuous to do like branding and content that's just like facials and microneedling and da-da-da. Whereas on like the other side of it, I'm like, I want to tap into the spiritual side of it and show that too. So there's more coming for Amala. There's loads more coming, and it's going to be interesting. But yeah, it's about finding that balance with the social media. Because in person, it's great.
Yes.
And like people are always like, oh, it was such a nice experience to come in. And that's what I love. But trying to find that balance with the social media is probably the part that's hard.
Constant struggle, isn't it? I want to quickly touch on the money aspect of things. So how do you find the right amount to charge? And do you feel like sometimes like, oh, am I overcharging for this? Like, have you felt that with your business and your brand?
I think I felt it more with photography.
Right. Because
it's such a sort of grey area. And I really wasn't like sure of how to price things and but also where I was at with that, because I was so unsure of myself. I was unsure with pricing and how good my work was. Yeah. So what I take away from that is when you value yourself enough, you know what your work is worth, right? You know that your work is going to be worth X amount because you value yourself to be that much. And that's been the biggest thing for me. So when I started Amala, I was really like, no, like I know what I'm doing here and I know my value and I know my worth. And therefore I'm going to price things the way I price them. It takes a bit of research too, right? You have to kind of look at what other people are charging or whatever.
Know the market.
But, the market. But also like take that with a pinch of salt, because what are you bringing to the table that they're not? And there always has to be something. Otherwise you're just doing whatever everyone else is doing, right? So yeah, for me it's been a case of looking at the market, but also being like, yeah, I'm worth this much. An hour of my time and an hour of my skills and an hour just with me is worth yeah, I just have to look at it that way. It's a lot of it comes from what you value yourself at and less so about what other people are doing.
I love that.
Yeah. And it can change though. You know, I might increase my prices. I might be like, oh, actually I'm worth more now. And
inflation too.
That's true.
Yeah.
You got to look at the cost of living. And that's, for me, it's to be able to like go from doing Amala part-time to doing it full-time. I'd really have to then look at money and be like, okay, what can I charge? What do I change here? Because I'm still doing my other job. Part-time too. I just work part-time. It's nice, but it's it's difficult because then the money that I make part-time elsewhere to match that and make that with Amala, that's always going to be the struggle. And that is the thing, that's the fear that holds a lot of people back. It's probably holding me back too.
Probably.
Where you're like, oh, I could drop down another day and do another day of Amala, and I'm like, oh, but that's a day of money that I could make elsewhere. So it's the fear of money that holds a lot of people back, of like, oh, actually just quitting and going full time with something.
Yeah, it's not always that simple, right? You have to work out logistics, work out what's feasible, how much people might be willing to pay, but people are generally willing to pay more if you're targeting the right sort of clientele, right?
Yeah.
And
also just the fear of it not working out.
Yeah.
That's
and the fear
always
of,
been my
what
thing.
if it's not worth the money? Like, what if they leave thinking, oh, I was so overpriced. Shit for what it was. Yeah.
And just like if your whole business in general just doesn't work, then you're like, oh, well, like I need money from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Well, Pooja, I wish I could talk to you for longer because I feel like we need at least 5 more hours. But I'm going to ask you one last question today, which is, what do you have strong game in?
Ooh. I want to say so many things, but then I don't want to sound like...
I love that.
I'm going to say, I think in helping people to see their worth and just feel better about themselves in whatever aspect that is, externally, internally, whatever that is. Yeah, I think that I don't want to put myself in a box and say skin because that's such a small fraction of what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Well, I hope you shed all of that extra self-doubt that you're carrying. I know you shed a lot already. And I'm excited to see where you take Amala. And I'm going to come for a facial. I know.
Do you know what? It's far, isn't it? A lot of people are like, it's so far.
So is this. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm excited. But no, honestly, power to you. And thank you for coming here and for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was really fun.
It was. Thank you so much.
Thank you.